So welcome back, everybody, for yet another member spotlight. It is now July already, would you believe it? And joining me from Melbourne today is Paul Markwick from Sage Group. Hello, Paul. How are you going?
I'm well, thank you, Brown. How are you?
Fantastic. It's great to see you again. It's been a while when we actually saw each other in the flesh, right?
Yeah, that's right. Nice.
What we typically do every month is basically put a spotlight on one of our successful members in the community. You're one of them. And of course, first of all, I want to kind of get people familiar a little bit more, like who you are, and particularly like your background. I'd like to come in from that segue because some of the people that will be seeing this will have that basically in common with you.
Yeah, sure. No, that's great. Like most people, I'm slightly uncomfortable talking about myself, but my background at Sage, I was basically doing my associate diploma at the time because I'm trades-based background. And I met Justin Carl, who was working at Sage, and he said, look, why don't you meet Andrew Downs, who's our founder of Sage, because we're always looking for good people. So I went in to see Andrew. That was in 1996. And Andrew he wasn't too sure whether he goes, oh, I'm not sure, because he's a very humble man. He didn't want to, he didn't want me to leave a job and go. So there was a bit of backing and throwing from, but I was really sure that was the place I wanted to be. So I basically said, no, I'm prepared to do it. And so we both took the plunge, and it's been I've got to say, it's been an exciting ride. A few bumps along the way, but it's been a great journey.
Absolutely. So more than 20 years already since that first sort of meetup. Absolutely,
yeah. So I guess at Sage now we have a thing called the Platinum Club. So if you've got 20 years of service, and I was one of the inaugural members, and each year it's been growing and growing. So I think we're up to like 50 people now or something in the Platinum Club that's coming up in October.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I love the fact that people are, hanging in there, being persistent, keep, let's say, doing what they do and climb the ladder. And prior to Sage, you mentioned you have a trade background. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I started, my parents were farmers. So I grew up on a farm in Lameroo. And I think for them, leaving school, they said, Paul, you can leave school, but you can't leave school and come back and work on the farm. You've got to go off and do something else. And for me, I think, and probably even my sphere, looking at my classmates and everyone, university was probably a step too far for us at those days. So a trade was just a logical step, it wasn't on the farm. So I got myself a trade and did really well. I met a girlfriend who's now my wife, and I said to her, should we go back on the farm? And she said, look, I love the farm, Paul, but I couldn't stand to be in such a small community where everyone knows everyone else's business. So in the end, I have an older sister and a younger brother, and none of us took the farm. It was probably a good thing because my parents were able to sell, and because it's a very capital intensive farming. So they sold up and they now live in Adelaide, which they're closer to their grandkids.
Fantastic. So from a trade background, away from the family farm, then meeting Andrew Downs and saying, let's get this started. You said that it's been an exciting journey over the last 20 plus years. Tell us a little bit more, and let's say, where did you start, and how did you climb the ladder along the way?
So I was really doing industrial controls, and while I don't have an engineering degree, I was pretty much sort of doing a lot of design and programming and project management. So I was sort of acting like an engineer, if you like. But we were all very hands-on back in the early days of Sage, and I think probably because I wasn't very good at coding, they said, oh, you can be a project manager, Paul, and that's really how I came. And I was good at customer facing and organising people and getting others to do things for me. So which is what you need to do. And really, so that was really where I found my skill set. Mm-hmm. And in the early days, it was a very flat structure, Brown. We all reported to Andrew. And I think they had the rule of 10, 3 and 10, but I think we sort of got to about 30, and it did start to get a bit unruly with everyone reporting to Andrew. And I remember one time, I was just working so hard and I ended up meeting Andrew, and I was getting a bit fed up with it. And he said, well, Paul, I can't solve your problem. Just hire someone. And I said, oh, okay. So that was the way that Andrew empowered me to fix the problem for myself and be proactive. And Andrew's very, he's really quite quite good in those lessons. That was 20 years ago, Bram, and I haven't stopped hiring people since then. So
Wow. So obviously today, what's your current role?
Current role is I'm head of Transport and Addinsight. So Addinsight is one of our software solution businesses, but Transport is probably one of the largest sectors at Sage. And these days, I'm less operational, but more strategy and customer facing. So basically winning work, partnering, reviewing contracts, and getting, setting up the teams for success, and then moving on to the next opportunity. So I'm forward looking.
So I'm hearing strategy, I'm hearing team, and I'm hearing client facing, which is the business development side of things.
Yes, yep.
Obviously, you and I, we met each other. We just talked about it earlier, probably around 2016 or 17, when another gentleman by the name of Dayon McCatton decided to create a program for service technicians and help them have more meaningful conversations with clients. That's where you and I met.
That's right. Yes, in those days I was the GM of Victoria, Tasmania, so very much with my operational hat on. And I think I came into Port Melbourne, our Port Melbourne office on that day, and we're working on a Saturday. Is that right?
That's right.
Programs. Yeah. No, that was a great program for us, and really it was teaching our service techs because I think Dion had the theory that these people are spending all the time with our customers. They're spending a lot of time customer facing. They're spending time, and what's better is they're solving problems for our customers, which is when you become the trusted advisor. Which I think for every business development person, that's really the space where we want to own and occupy if we can. But these guys, they have that, and they don't. Guys and girls, I should say, but quite often they don't like to have the skill set or the confidence to ask, can I do this, or could I look at this, or can I have another job, or sell a different product or solution? They see that as, he'll just call me if he needs. But really, by just changing that mindset for our service techs, giving them a couple of extra tools in their toolbox, it gives them the confidence to have those extra conversations, and it was really as a key enabler to the growth of our service business.
Yeah, great. Well, at the time, I think there was about 40 odd service technicians. There's probably now about 120 last time I counted.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's one of probably the limiter to that is, is basically finding people, I would say, Bram. It's not finding customers, because they're, it's such a good solution. Of all the things that we could sell at Sage, I always used to say to my people, that's the easiest thing. In the old days when we used to carry business cards, you just say, here's the business card, ring this number, and 24/7, someone will turn up, solve your problem for you.
That's it, problem solvers. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that the service techs that you guys have, which is why they're so hard to get, is that they're basically mavericks in the field. I call them almost like a SWAT team within electrical trades, right? So they're very, very detail orientated, but it can cut through the clutter and fix things when they break down.
Absolutely. And these days, Bram, what we're doing is we're not training as many mavericks as we do. They're harder to find. Not everyone wants to be working the hours like that they do. So actually, what we're doing is we're laying in our skills training business and actually taking on younger people. And we're actually also laying on a network operations centre to support those younger people in the field with really super experienced people, that when they get to a problem, if they don't know it, they can actually, there's someone on tap to call to help those solutions, so to help solve those problems. So it's really, when you send a Sage person to the field, there's one person, but they've got 700 people supporting them.
Wow, that's actually a very good program. It's almost like junior and senior teaming up. The juniors are getting, are upgrading their skills and mindset, whilst the previous people are actually training others, which means they feel also probably better and more connected to, the newcomers.
Well, it's a great safe opportunity. It's safe for the people, because they know they've got someone that they can call. But it's actually, it's still providing a great service to our customers. Nothing beats experience where someone can go in and go, oh yeah, that's the problem. But if someone was working through a checklist and engaging others, they still find the problem. It might take them an extra 10 minutes, but they're still using that diligent steps to go through, and they're training, and we're giving back to the industry, and it's making the whole service business much more sustainable as well.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
it's definitely a nice start that initially started in South Australia and then expanded across the whole country, really. Obviously, then COVID hit and all that sort of stuff. There's multiple years later now. Recently, we did something else again, and that was called the Business Development Accelerator, slightly modified for Sage purposes. And so you've come through that program as well. Tell us a little bit more how you experienced that after all these years of being client-facing.
Yeah, well, it was great. It was probably about 18 months ago. I was transitioning out of my VicTaz GM role into my head of transport role. And, I guess that was a real inflection point for me. And I'm always happy to learn new things. So I said to Danny, he asked me if I wanted to be part of the program. I think there was 10 spaces. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll be part of it. I know Bram and I'll have a look at it. So it was great. And I still use some of those tools today. Having some extra tools in your toolbox basically, gives you confidence, gives you a bit of discipline, and particularly, sometimes if you are stuck or you find yourself, in a problem, you can go back and pull out those notes. Or even, I think the real power we're getting is because there's quite a few people been through the program now, is you actually can have a conversation and use a common set of language when you're talking about how do I get over this obstacle, or how do I get around this barrier. There's the common set of language, I think, which I'm a big fan of. I think when people are going through a program, the more you get through, it gives it life and longevity.
That's a really strong point. I like that. It's true. Like, obviously, I think it's probably good for people to know that by now, you were one of the first that went through the program 18 months ago. But since then, almost 50 people have gone through it in the business. You have now that shared common knowledge, the same tools. For people like yourself at your level, when you guys are going to clients from a business development perspective, are you talking hundreds of thousands or are you talking millions of dollars?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question, Bram, because it keeps growing and growing. We recently did a submission for, over $50 million, one proposal. Yeah. So it's, the numbers are getting quite big, and the sign-off, the sign-off levels that you need to go through and the internal reviews that we need to look at, is quite sophisticated. And there's a lot of preparation that needs to go into those meetings, and which is why we need lots of tools in our tool chest.
Very good. And I'm glad that we've been able to share those with you. From memory, I mean, we've touched on quite a bit because there was 5 sessions of, with a lot of content that we went through together. What was one of the tools that you would say that one is by far one of the ones that gives us the best cut through, best negotiation impacts, you name it?
Yeah, well, I'd say certainly the work we did on the disc and the profiling, preparing for your meeting, listing some questions, working out some BATNAs, just being a bit prepared, thinking about the what ifs, and and I think challenging some of your assumptions when you're going into that meeting is a really good thing. That's what I'd like to ask myself. But just having that profile, doing that work on their profile and actually having that awareness of that and being able to flip if you haven't got it right as well. I think they're the things which I'm still using from the course, in my day-to-day.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. And would you say, because let's be honest, there's a lot of training that is offered, a lot of, programs that live out there, a lot of courses that we can do, even LinkedIn pushes all sorts of content all the time for courses to do. Would you say that it's very easy to measure return on investment from a program like the Accelerator that you went through?
I would say certainly with the work that we did in the service team, it was measurable. And I know that Dion did a lot of work, to make that hard number. It's something. It's a little bit hard. It's more intangible in our roles because we're basically, it's a win-loss business in a lot of instances. And it's around building relationships and developing and getting a network, and and then there's. Did we win it because we were the lowest price? We hope not. We never want to be that, but we want to win it on value. So these are all conversations. So there's a lot that goes into the mix. But generally, I think it comes down like when you're actually valuing the benefit on a program such as the one that you're running. You look at it and you look at the feedback, the survey of your people as you go along. You know, and then you might take the pulse in 3 months and say, hey, are you still using some of that? What are you doing? What's, you know, is there anything blocking you? And I think generally you can tell if you're getting positive outcomes. And I know Danny really well. I sit next to him, and he wouldn't, you know, he wouldn't be reinvesting if he didn't feel that he got something out of that. Someone like Danny, in representing a company like Sage, you know, he's investing his money carefully. We all do, and I think if he's investing it with you, I think that's a good status that we're seeing value.
I understand. Just for clarification purposes, Danny is basically the head of business development, so he looks after business development across the group, which means all the people that have been coming through the ranks, so to speak, have just a client-facing role, where the tools that you mentioned actually benefit them in the role that they're in to have better meetings with clients. So I've got another question for you, Paul. You've now been in a client-facing role for a number of years. You already mentioned the Platinum Club earlier. Speaking about success, what do you feel is potentially been the biggest contributor to your success overall in your life when you're dealing with clients?
Yeah, okay. I think, well, something that I always try and be is I always try and be my authentic self. Because you know, when I look at Andrew, and I know that you know Andrew, he's very charismatic, very, you know, charming. He just naturally comes to him, and while that's great, but you can't have a whole company full of Andrews. It just doesn't work. But because I'm representing Sage, I've got a little bit of Andrew, but I think I'm actually delivering on a value proposition. And my authentic self is about, you know, turning up when I say I will, doing what I commit to, following through, showing some genuine care to my team and to the customer's outcome. And a lot of cases in our history, it's about basically not trying to win the big thing. It's about you know, asking for an opportunity, doing that really well, and then going back again. And that's about building relationships, because I think that's relationships and networks is how you build businesses, not through, you know, anything else. And I hope by being authentic, that's a key enabler, I think, to building that.
Beautiful words, authenticity. I personally value that a lot as well. And I think it's really important when people can show up and be humans, other humans with other humans. It's really good to create win-win-win, you know, for everyone, and be real. We spoke a little bit about the program where, you know, on the service side of things, where, you know, new people are being brought in, you know, just graduates from school, and, you know, they're being mentored by more senior service technicians in the business. What would you say new people that are coming into business development this day and age? So they're looking for a new opportunity. They think business development is potentially a good, they like working with clients, they like the idea. What sort of idea would you give them as they are starting the journey of business development?
Yeah, great. That's a really good question. I would say find some mentors, and actually, you know, and go along and observe. And if you can find the more you can see, the better. And also the other thing I found too was that you actually, even if you're talking to a, you know, for me, if I'm not customer facing, but if I'm talking to a supplier, or I'm talking to someone new in the lift, or I'm going to a networking function, you know, you just have a conversation with people, try different things on, see how that works, and observe. Just really observe people. If you're going to buy a new suit, I like to look at the people in the suits and the styles at the airports. You know, you see that's nice. You know, that's you know, just get some ideas and try it on. And then I guess it's going back to that authenticity stuff. So look at all those other styles and then go, what works for me and can be that I can have as that persona, but also that's going to fit naturally with me. Because I think if you're always trying to be something you're not, you're going to be tired at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the year, and it's probably not going to write. So, you know, find a way that you can find some styles that work, and be prepared to change. You know, change a little bit, but don't go in with a fixed idea. That there's no one way of selling. It's about, I would say that it's about building relationships, but not everyone gets to do that, because sometimes business development is more transactional, you know, and opportunistic basis. But wherever you can, look for something where you can be yourself.
Golden nuggets. I love it. So we had already authenticity. We had basically earning people's business. You start somewhere and then build it up from there. So it's definitely not transactional. It's long-term and it's relationship-based. So all that sort of stuff. And keep an open mind. That's what I've heard you say here, which is great. When people want to reach out to you, would you be happy for them to connect with you in some shape or form?
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, LinkedIn is the networking tool that we all use. Drop me a message, and I always will respond to those messages. It's a good way to reach out, and it's a tool that I use, Bram, actually. Yeah. I find people, if they won't respond, people don't always answer the mobile number if they don't know these days. But hopping onto their LinkedIn and saying, "Hey, I met you here, and this is what I'd like to talk to you about," most people will, respond back.
That's great. Well, Thanks for making yourself available. And I do know that what you say is what you do, Paul. So that's how you operate, which is great. I really appreciate, knowing how busy you are and all the things that you got on, that you made yourself available to share with others where you're at. And, hopefully people have taken something out of this. Thanks everybody for joining in as well. And hope you've taken some golden nuggets away. And if you have, let us know in the comments section below the video. Because it's always good to see what people have taken out of a session like this. And I look forward to seeing you again next time.